using baked bricks made of clay, which were then covered with a layer of blue glazed tiles. The design of the gate featured a series of bulls and dragons in low relief, symbolizing the power and strength of the Babylonian.
In 1899, beneath the dust of ancient Babylon, German archaeologist Robert Koldewey began uncovering something that should have been impossible. At first, it looked like a ruined wall, then a ceremonial road, then a gate. But as the blue-glazed bricks emerged from the earth piece by piece, the excavation team realized they were not standing before an ordinary entrance. They were standing before one of the most terrifying monuments of the ancient world, the Ishtar Gate, a colossal structure covered in lions, bulls, and strange dragon serpents with long necks, scaled bodies, clawed feet, and horned heads. The official explanation was simple. These creatures were mythological symbols, religious decoration, protective animals, art. That was the safe interpretation. But the deeper researchers looked, the stranger it became. Because the creature carved into Babylon's most sacred gateway was not random. It had a name. It had a role. It appeared in older texts, older myths, older warnings. And according to some interpretations, it was not placed on the gate to celebrate a god. It was placed there to mark a prison, a boundary, a sealed threshold between the world of men and something that was never meant to walk freely again. The Babylonians called this creature the Mu, the furious serpent, the dragon of the gods, a hybrid beast tied to Marduk, the supreme deity of Babylon. But what disturbed later investigators was not that the dragon appeared in Babylonian religion. Ancient cultures often filled their temples with impossible beasts. What disturbed them was where it appeared, on a gate, not hidden inside a temple, not buried in a mythic poem, not carved into a tomb for the dead, but repeated again and again across the entrance to one of the most powerful cities on earth, as if the entire structure had one message. This is where it was held. This is where it was controlled. And this is where the gods wanted the world to remember the boundary. Before we go deeper, subscribe now if you're drawn to the mysteries that history refuses to fully explain. Because the Ishtar Gate is only the beginning. What was carved into Babylon may not have been mythology at all. It may have been a warning left in blue stone. Modern history tells us that ancient Babylon was advanced for its time, but still limited. No telescopes, no satellites, no modern instruments, no computers. And yet, Babylonian civilization created one of the most sophisticated intellectual systems of the ancient world. They wrote on clay tablets with mathematical precision. They tracked the movement of planets. They predicted eclipses. They divided time into sacred units. They developed astronomical tables that later cultures would inherit. They built cities aligned with cosmic order and filled their temples with symbols that connected heaven, earth, and the underworld. To call them primitive is to misunderstand them completely. Babylon was not a village of superstition. It was a machine of observation. Its priests were astronomers. Its scribes were mathematicians. Its temples were calendars in stone. Its myths were archives of power. And at the heart of that world stood the gate. The Ishtar Gate was not merely an entrance into Babylon. It was part of a ritual path, a sacred road, a ceremonial corridor through which images of the gods were carried during the Akitu festival, when kingship, cosmic order, and divine authority were renewed. Every brick was intentional. Every symbol was chosen. The lions belonged to Ishtar. The bulls belonged to Adad, but the dragon serpent belonged to Marduk. And Marduk was not just another god. He was the god who defeated chaos, the god who split the primeval monster, the god who imposed order on the universe. According to the Babylonian creation epic Enuma Elish, Marduk rose against Tiamat, the great serpent dragon of the cosmic abyss. She was not simply a monster. She was the ancient sea, the mother of gods, the original chaos before creation. When Marduk defeated her, he did not simply kill a creature. He divided reality. He used her body to build the heavens and the earth. And from that moment on, civilization itself existed because chaos had been imprisoned, measured, and contained. This is where the story becomes difficult to dismiss, because the dragon on the gate was not placed there as decoration. It stood under the authority of Marduk, the same god who conquered the serpent of chaos. And if the gate was part of a sacred ritual system, then the presence of the dragon may have meant something far darker than art. It may have symbolized a living boundary between ordered civilization and the ancient force buried beneath it. When Coldway's team excavated Babylon, thousands of glazed bricks were recovered. The gate was later reconstructed in Berlin's Pergamon Museum, where millions have walked past the blue walls and admired the animals without knowing the deeper question behind them. Why would a civilization that was obsessed with astronomy, cosmic cycles, divine law, and sacred order choose a dragon serpent as one of the main symbols guarding its royal entrance? At first, researchers assumed it was symbolic. That was the safe interpretation. A serpent dragon represents chaos. A gate represents protection. Therefore, the gate protects the city from chaos. Simple. But then the pattern began to widen. The Mu was not confined to the Ishtar gate. It appears on boundary stones, cylinder seals, temple objects, and reliefs connected to divine authority. It is shown not as a defeated monster, but as a controlled force, a creature under command, a power that once belonged to older gods, then was transferred to Marduk. This transfer matters because in ancient Mesopotamian religion, divine creatures were not decorative pets. They were embodiments of cosmic forces. When one god claimed the creature of another, it meant power had shifted. Authority had changed hands. Something ancient had been conquered. Something dangerous had been brought into the service of the new order. And the dragon serpent was the sign of that transfer. Mainstream scholars call this mythology, religious symbolism, political theology, a visual language of empire. But mythology does not usually require such architectural obsession. The Babylonians did not carve one dragon. They repeated it across an entire gate. They placed it in a ceremonial passage used during the renewal of kingship and cosmic order. They embedded it into the structure that connected city, temple, god, and ruler. Calling it decoration only works until the same symbol appears again and again in places associated with boundaries, divine weapons, and the containment of chaos. So what if the gate was not just meant to impress visitors? What if it was built to seal a memory of a time when something came from below or above or beyond the known world and had to be bound by the gods themselves? In 1927, a little-known Assyriologist named Dr. Elias Hartmann began comparing images of the Mu from Babylonian ruins with older Mesopotamian serpent traditions. He expected to find artistic evolution, a creature changing shape over centuries. But what he claimed to find instead was continuity, the same body logic, the same horned head, the same association with divine authority, the same placement near thresholds, the same relationship to gods who defeat chaos. Hartmann argued that the dragon serpent was not merely a symbol of chaos, but a record of containment, a visual memory of a force that ancient priests believed had once crossed into the human world. His paper was never widely accepted, not because every image was disproven, not because the inscriptions vanished, but because the conclusion was too unstable. If the dragon was only myth, it was safe. If the dragon represented a real event encoded in myth, then Babylonian religion became something else entirely. A memory system, a warning system, a record of contact with forces that civilization could only describe as gods and monsters. Within a few years, Hartmann's work was buried in academic footnotes. The official reading remained unchanged. The dragon was symbolic. The gate was ceremonial. The myth was religious poetry. But the numbers did not go away. The Babylonians tracked Venus with astonishing accuracy. They recorded planetary motion in systematic tables. They built a worldview where the heavens were not random, but structured by cycles. They believed events on Earth reflected events in the sky. And here is where it gets strange. The dragon serpent was not only a monster of the underworld, it was connected to cosmic order. The battle between Marduk and Tiamat was not just a story about gods fighting. It was a story about the creation of the measured universe from violent chaos, a cosmic event, a division of heaven and earth, a catastrophe transformed into order. Modern science speaks in different language, but it also tells us that order emerged from violent beginnings. Planets formed through collision. Moons were born from impact. Geological ages were shaped by catastrophe. Extinctions reset the planet. Civilization itself rose in the shadow of climate shifts, floods, and celestial cycles. The ancient world described these forces as dragons. Modern science describes them as impact events, orbital instability, tectonic violence, and cosmic debris. Different language, same terror. They had no satellites, no deep space telescopes, no geological dating labs, no planetary simulation software. And yet they preserved the idea that creation began with a violent cosmic serpent, defeated, divided, and transformed into the ordered world. If that was only poetry, it was powerful poetry. But if it preserved an older memory, then the Ishtar Gate becomes more than a monument. It becomes a locked symbol, a reminder that order is temporary, that chaos was never destroyed, only contained. And this is where the story becomes bigger than Babylon, because the dragon at the gate is not alone. In Sumer, serpent beings appear in connection with wisdom, water, and hidden knowledge. In Egypt, the serpent Apophis threatens the solar order every night, trying to drag the sun back into darkness. In Greece, Python guards the sacred center before being slain by Apollo. In the Hebrew tradition, Leviathan rises as a monstrous sea creature associated with chaos and divine power. In India, the serpent Vritra holds back the waters until Indra strikes him down. In Mesoamerican tradition, the feathered serpent appears as a being of sky, earth, knowledge, and civilization. Again and again, the same pattern appears. A serpent, a dragon, a cosmic threat, a divine battle, a boundary between order and chaos. A god or hero who imprisons, defeats, or controls the creature. Mainstream history treats these as separate myths, different cultures, different symbols, different stories. But the repetition is hard to ignore. Why did civilizations separated by oceans, language, and time describe the same kind of being at the edge of creation? Why did they connect it to water, sky, catastrophe, knowledge, and divine authority? Why did they place serpents at gates, temples, heavens, underworlds, and sacred mountains? The safe explanation is psychology. Humans fear snakes, so humans create serpent myths. That explanation works on the surface, but it does not explain the cosmic scale. It does not explain why serpent dragons are tied to creation itself. It does not explain why they are repeatedly defeated by sky gods. It does not explain why the Babylonian dragon was carved into a royal gate associated with Marduk, the god who conquered chaos and established cosmic order. Calling it coincidence only works until the same coincidence appears across multiple civilizations. And if the pattern is real, then the implication is staggering. What if ancient dragon-serpent myths were not invented independently? What if they were fragments of a shared memory? A memory of a force that appeared before civilization stabilized. A force ancient people believed had to be sealed behind divine law, ritual architecture, and sacred numbers. The Babylonians may have encoded that memory into their most famous gate, not as fantasy, but as a warning. Because a gate is never just a wall. A gate separates two worlds, inside and outside, known and unknown, protected and forbidden, human and divine. And if the Ishtar Gate was built as a ritual threshold, then the dragon serpent carved upon it was not merely guarding Babylon from enemies. It was guarding reality from what lay beyond the threshold. That is the dark implication. The gate did not celebrate the dragon. It displayed the thing that had been subdued, a conquered force, a prison mark, a reminder that civilization exists only because something older was forced back into the dark. And if the tablets were right about the heavens, what else were they right about? If the myths preserved astronomical knowledge, could they also preserve warnings? If the dragon serpent was symbolic, why was it given such technical consistency across centuries? If the gate was ceremonial, why did its imagery point directly to cosmic order, divine conflict, and the containment of chaos? And if the creature represented something ancient people truly feared, then what were they afraid would return? This is the question institutions rarely touch, because uncomfortable discoveries do not need to be destroyed. They only need to be softened. A dragon becomes a symbol. A warning becomes a myth. A boundary becomes architecture. A memory becomes religion. Then it is placed behind glass, described in museum labels, and made harmless. This is how dangerous ideas disappear. Not with fire, not with public denial, but with classification. Mythological creature, decorative motif, religious emblem, cultural symbol. Each label may be technically correct, but together, they may hide the larger pattern. The easiest way to erase a discovery is not to destroy it. It is to make serious people afraid to ask the wrong question. What if ancient people were not trying to entertain themselves with monsters? What if they were recording the architecture of fear? What if the dragon serpent at Babylon's gate was a message meant to survive empire, conquest, translation, and time? A message written in blue-glazed brick. A message saying, the gate must remain closed. The old thing must remain bound. The cycle must not be broken. Because the most unsettling part of the Ishtar Gate is not that it was built. It is that it was rebuilt, recovered from ruins, transported, reassembled, displayed again. The gate that once stood at the ritual heart of Babylon now stands thousands of miles from its original city, reconstructed in a modern museum, watched by visitors who may not realize what they are walking toward. A forbidden threshold, a dragon repeated in silence, a memory of cosmic violence frozen in ceramic blue. So what does this mean for us? Maybe human history is not a straight line from primitive fear to modern reason. Maybe it is a broken memory, a record of civilizations trying to describe forces they did not fully understand. Maybe the gods were names for powers. Maybe the dragons were names for catastrophes. Maybe the gates were not only monuments, but locks. And maybe every ancient civilization that watched the sky was not simply worshiping it. Maybe they were waiting, watching for the return of something that had come before, something that had been defeated, contained, imprisoned, but never erased. Because in the old stories, chaos is never truly destroyed. It sleeps. It waits beneath the waters, behind the horizon, beyond the gate. And when the sacred cycle turns again, the ancient texts say the boundary must be renewed. The king must be restored. The god must be honored. The serpent must remain bound. But what happens when the rituals are forgotten? What happens when the city falls? What happens when the gate is broken, buried, excavated, and opened again for the modern world to see? Was the Ishtar Gate only a monument? Or was it the last visible piece of a warning system we no longer know how to read? If this made you question what you were taught about ancient history, subscribe now. Because in the next video, we will examine another forbidden ancient record, one that describes a celestial weapon of the gods, a weapon said to have burned cities, split the sky, and left behind evidence some researchers believe may still be buried in the desert. Comment below. Was the Babylonian Dragon-Serpent only mythology, or was it evidence of something older than history? Because if the ancient records are right, then the story of humanity did not begin with us. And the thing behind the gate may not have stayed imprisoned forever.